Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Amber Gaige, marketing strategist, international best-selling author, and founder of Far Beyond Marketing. I'm super excited because marketing is the engine that makes business go. So with that, welcome, Amber, and thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, Brett, how are you today? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm great and super excited to have you on. I've been looking forward to talking to you. So I have a lot of things that I want to ask you about, but can we start off with your personal story? I'm curious about your background and how you actually started your career.
Yeah, absolutely. So my career is full of twists and turns, as most entrepreneurs can experience. I grew up in a family business, third generation entrepreneur. We are native Texans, so as you might assume, freedom and flexibility are really important in our family. We don't like being told what to do very much, so that's the entrepreneurship world. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial, self-propelled environment. I was delivering water heaters. My stepfather is a plumber, and my older brothers are plumbers. And so my childhood was playing on backhoes and playing in the dirt and delivering water heaters and learning how to dispatch through the old rock radios, two-way radios and Maxcos. I'm dating myself, Brett, but if you remember Maxcos, that's how we used to dispatch. So yeah. And then that parlayed into ultimately working in the office, going to college, coming back, and then taking over the responsibility of lead generation for our family businesses. Had to figure out what worked, because if the phone didn't ring, we didn't eat. And that wasn't an option because we like food. So, had to figure that out pretty early. After doing that, I started my first marketing agency in 2013 and was very privileged to work with home service providers all across the United States. We had over 2.5 million lead generating guidebooks that we mailed. And that company scaled so quickly that private equity purchased it in 5 years. And
Wow.
that allowed me to play on a national level, to really hone my skills and say, what is this beautiful intersection between national branding and local marketing? And that was a wonderful journey. I got to work with so many great national brands. And then that parlayed into ultimately relaunching my company after my non-compete expired. And now I get to be home and do what I love doing, which is to support business owners and help them achieve their goals.
That's very cool and a pretty fascinating yet unique story. So I'm curious, when you ended up sort of taking over the marketing for your family's business, was that by default because that's what was needed, or did you have a particular interest that you said, you know what, there's something that fascinates me about marketing and lead gen, so this is really the area that I want to focus on?
It was really both, Brett, because I, at the time, was running the 24-hour call center that was responsible for booking the calls and dispatching the technicians in our family company. And I realized that there was a trend in what was working in prompting people to call. So I started making notes of that and seeing what those call to actions were that were effective. And then as it happens in a family business, your parents come to you one day and shove a bunch of papers your way and go, you're handling this now. Have fun with that. Don't mess it up. So yeah,
That's
kind of by
that's
default
very,
too.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it usually is sort of a little rough and dirty when when it comes
Yeah.
down to entrepreneurship, especially, for small businesses. I mean, you roll up the sleeves, you do what you got to do. For me, I didn't grow up in a family like that. My parents were actually the opposite. They were corporate. It was get a job, work for a company for a long time, and that company will take care of you in return. Because when my
Mm.
father and my mother, their generation, that's what they were raised on. And it
Yes.
was okay. It was accepted that that would happen. And then right around the time where my father was getting to a point, he wasn't near retirement age yet, but he was middle of his career, a little past sort of the arc of his career,
Yeah.
and sort of hoping to coast into the rest of it. He got laid off. It was
Mm.
that wave where everybody decided we're going to lay off everybody who's older so we can save
Mm.
money. And so they changed the rules of the game right in the middle of it. And
Yeah.
being a kid in that family, what I saw was this is scary. The idea of
Yeah.
going to get a job and thinking that you've got security, because I mean, he always had the highest rankings. It wasn't like he was a bad employee or anything. He wasn't terribly ambitious, so he wasn't threatening his bosses and none of that stuff. Like, he was the perfect guy because he was smart enough, worked hard enough, but he wasn't somebody who was after anybody. He wasn't malicious or any of those kinds of things, and good at
Right.
what he did. And yet, for no reason, sort of like Sia. So the interesting thing is, I started my career with a job as well. I started with a business, but then I also had a job. And within 2 years, the dot-com crash happened and the company pulled back to the West Coast and I was out of a job. And I said, geez, this is like Groundhog Day. It happened to my
Yeah.
father. And so I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and business ownership anyway, but
Yeah.
I could never find what it was I really wanted to do. And then, but it's interesting how we each have our own path to how we get there. So
Yeah.
you've obviously experienced and talked with and worked with a lot of different companies. What are some common marketing myths that you think that hold entrepreneurs back?
I think imposter syndrome is a big thing that holds entrepreneurs back. It's not a marketing myth, but I think every single one of us struggles with, do we actually have something unique enough that's going to carry us through and put bread on the table, right? So I think we have to deal with our own inner demons if we're going to be successful as business owners, and realize that there is free market and opportunity for us all. And that competition is a great thing, not a bad thing. So intimidation really shouldn't have a seat at the table for an entrepreneur. I think some common marketing myths are that if I throw it up against the wall and see if it sticks, it's gonna lead to lead generation. It's like, no, there's a lot of nuances when it comes to marketing that are both art and science that you have to take into account. And marketing should be handled with kid gloves. It's not something that should be just willy-nilly thrown around and seeing if it can work. Every dollar has a purpose, and you really have to lay some fundamental things down before you start investing in marketing. Do you have a call to action? Do you have consistent branding? These are all things I talk about in my book. If you just go out to market and you don't have a plan, you're setting your marketing up to fail. And I also see, number 3, the myth that I see that happens a lot is that if I run paid ads, my phone will ring. And every single day I work with new clients and I'm like, you weren't ready for paid ads. Your website sucks. There's no one that's going to call you. So
That's
there you go.
awesome. That's awesome. First off, I have to touch on the mental aspect. I think that's so important that you mentioned that, because the imposter syndrome, it's amazing. I work with entrepreneurs every day. And one of the things that always fascinates me is some people have amazingly unique experience, amazingly deep knowledge about something, crazy skills, and they're still intimidated. Well, who's going to want this? Like I said, because
Yeah.
once you know something yourself, you feel like, well, everybody knows this, right? And so
Yes.
it's amazing how you have to mentally conquer that and just push through it anyway to get going. To your second point, I think that one of the things that I've found, and I'd be curious to see if you feel the same way, is the coolest thing about marketing, but also the most frustrating part, is you could have your plan all set up. And it's important to know that you're going to do that. But at the end of the day, it's about the ability to read the analytics and adapt what you're doing to feed the winners, starve the losers, and make everything work. Because look, I've written sales pages, right? I've been in digital marketing 20 years. And I can tell you that I will write 5 headlines and I'll say, I'm going to split test these. I got these 3 gems. I spent a lot of time. Like, I know they're really good. These other 2 I'll put in as throwaways because I got to test them. The number of times one of the throwaways outperformed my own, it's embarrassing. But you're
Yeah.
like, I'm supposed to be a marketing guy, and here I go, and the one that I sort of threw up there. But there's still value, obviously, in marketing experience, but it's impossible to just predict every single thing about exactly the way a market is going to react, right?
Yeah, totally. You never know how the consumer is going to react. And thankfully now we have data science that helps us to see with more clarity than ever before the consumer trends and the keywords that they are putting in and the reactions that they're having. The average consumer is interacting with ads 43 times before they take a single action right now. It's
43.
insane.
Yeah.
So, we do have the data available to us, but very few people are actually harnessing that data to make well-informed decisions. A transparent database, a transparent dashboard is absolutely crucial when it comes to your marketing. Measure twice, cut once, right? If you have the data science to back it, work smarter, not harder, right? You should always split test. I love that you said that. We don't know what's inspiring our consumers to take action unless we have a clear picture in our mind of who our target audience is, and we have tracked within our own businesses what they are buying from us. When you know who your target audience is and you know what SKUs they are actually purchasing from you, you can then get more adept at these calls to action.
Yeah, and that makes total sense. I have to comment on your idea about paid ads because it's a funny story that relates to offline ads. But you said, people run ads. Look, it's low hanging fruit. If I exchange money, I'll get clicks, right, on my ad, or I'll get phone ringing or whatever else. So it's the thing that people always want to gravitate toward, but it isn't always smart, because not only do you need to have an optimized, funnel or whatever you're setting up on the call to action and that stuff, but also you've got to have the capacity to handle it. So in my very first venture, I had a brick and mortar business right out of college, and I started a computer business. So we would build custom configured PCs. We'd ship them all over the US. And back then it was pre-internet. The internet was really just getting started. So the way that you got clients or customers was you advertised in the back of magazines. People nowadays have no idea how lucky they are about how quickly you can get the analytics. I would submit an ad 8 weeks before it ever hit the newsstand. But here's the funny part. So I'm sitting there in my little office, and we're getting an occasional call, but I don't really have a great lead gen thing. So we decide to run these ads. So the ad is going to hit on a certain day. They tell me, okay, on the newsstand, it'll be on this day. The day that thing hit, the phone just went bananas. I couldn't believe how many calls came in one day. I wasn't prepared for it, and so to your point, like, there's a lot of stuff you got to do. Everyone's excited about getting the phone to ring, but first of all, you got to make sure that you have a process in place to be able to handle it, and the capacity as well, because otherwise you're throwing dollars down the drain. And so,
Yes.
so I think that's just really funny. But the other thing you mentioned was about the analytics. It's amazing to me the number of entrepreneurs I'll talk to, and I'll say we're talking about their funnel, and it's like, okay, well, so for your lead magnet, what's your opt-in rate? What's your sign-up rate? Oh, I don't know. Well, what's your conversion rate on your sales letter? I don't know. Well, how many people have hit your pick? I'm not really sure. I mean, of course you don't know what's working and what's not, because you don't even they have the analytics because all these platforms track them, but yet they've never looked at them. And I find that fascinating. So a lot of businesses are on a tight budget, right? Especially small businesses, new businesses. Do you have advice for them in particular for marketing?
Absolutely. So I think that is the fun part of marketing, is when you are laying the foundation for your business and you are growing it incrementally. So I actually have a free toolkit for entrepreneurs and small businesses on my website at farbeyondmarketing.com, where we give you a marketing planner for a year so that you can actually plan out your calls to action, the platforms you're going to advertise, all of the things that you need for a whole year. So that's advice number one. Plan. Aim, then fire. So always plan. Number two, understand who your target demographic is. And it's so much more than just male, female. I'm going to run calls in this zip code. I'm going to be located here. No, it's what is driving your target demographic to do business with you. Do they like the color blue, or do they like the color green? How do you know that? And then always shift your marketing to solve a problem for your customers. It's not about, my name is Amber and my business is Far Beyond Marketing. It's about, your name is Brett and you have a problem, and here's how I solve that problem for you. So when you're talking about going to market, never lead with who you are and what you do great, thus positioning yourself as the hero. Always position yourself as the solution provider for that group of people that you want to serve, and hit them again and again and again. And then lastly, Go to market with a guerrilla warfare mentality. You don't have to have investors to start your business. You can start small and grow incrementally. When we started our plumbing company, I remember my mother getting up and going to 10 chambers of commerce every single week. She would rotate them. But you know what? It was boots on the ground. So kiss the babies, shake the hands, be a part of your community, and get out there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there is no substitute for the work, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
just you got to build those relationships. You got to put in the time. And I love what you said about the way the positioning works, because the number of people that will always start with who they are, what they do, shocks me. You know, it's the person doesn't care unless they know that they have a problem you can solve.
Right.
So funny story. I was when I was working for the .com company in New York, we had hired a new business director for the branch, and so he was a seasoned sales professional. And the CEO of our company always had a dream, because he grew up in New York, to have an office in the Chrysler Building. So we started in a little crawl space somewhere. Eventually, we got the 63rd floor of the Chrysler Building. So we had this really awesome office. It's cool. The views are amazing and crazy. The windows actually open. But regardless, yeah, it's because it's so old. The building is so old that and those floors are all private. So you can't go to those floors above 60 unless you have a card key. So the funny thing about it is, I'm telling you this because you're not my prospect. But the funny thing about this is, I go on a sales call with them. They say, "Will you go with them?" I'm not in sales, but I'm in a staff management. So they say, "Will you go with him just to help him out and stuff?" So we go on this sales call. This guy's a 30-year veteran in sales. We sit down with the client. I got to tell you, we got an office in the Chrysler Building. I'm sitting there. If I could have slapped myself on the forehead, I would have. I'm thinking to myself, first of all, this guy couldn't care less. Right. Second of all you're telling him is, this is why our prices are so high. It literally made no sense. I was stunned. You know, this is a sales professional. I'm not even in sales, and I recognized it wasn't a good approach. So it is crazy. But so a lot of industries are super competitive. Are there strategies that business owners can use to stand out if they're in a crowded market?
Absolutely. One of my favorite strategies is lined out beautifully by Donald Miller in his book, How to Story Brand Your Business. There's another fantastic book that I love called Marketing is War by Trout and Reese. And these strategies talk about a couple of different things. Number one, it touches on what you just said. Never lead with authority, lead with servant leadership, and create a story that invites your customer into a success pattern through the vehicle of your product or service. So if you haven't story branded your business, number one, absolutely go through it. It's a 90-minute exercise to sit down, work out the 7-part framework of how to story brand your business. There are free tools online, or you can get it on my website, to know exactly how to talk about your business so that people will shut up and listen. So number one, get your story straight. That's your clear copy. Number two, know your target audience. Why are they buying from you and what are they buying from you? Number three, make sure your branding is incredibly consistent. Don't fall to the temptation of using 15 different colors and 20 different fonts and, I'm just experimenting with this, I'm experimenting with that. Okay, that's great. Do it in your basement at home. Don't do that in public, okay? Because you're not going to come across as an authority or legit business. So get all that straight before you go to market. You can use very inexpensive tools online or services if you need to bootstrap it, but consistent branding in front of your target audience wins the day again and again, right? Frequency over reach. And then lastly, have a channel management process in place so that you can rinse and repeat and serve your customers again and again. Because we both know, Brett, it is a lot less expensive to upsell a current customer than to go find a new one.
Yeah, there's a lot of terrific advice right there. So appreciate you sharing that. I mean, that's like rewatch that part, everybody. Listen to that again and again, because that's your roadmap. It's awesome.
That's what I say in my book. It's the 4 C's of effective marketing.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So talking about stories, right? Stories obviously are really good. It's funny, when salespeople used to come to the door in the old days, right? They would knock on the door, and then you open the door, you see they got something in their hand, and most people slam the door because, it's a salesperson. I don't know if they're in your area or not, but have you seen the magazine guys, the guys that sell the magazine subscriptions?
Oh
It's
yeah.
this. I mean, it's brilliant. They come to the door. They're smiling. They've got some story. They don't have anything. They're not selling anything. They're just trying to engage with you, and they disarm you with these funny stories and jokes, and they get you to laugh. It's incredible, the training, because for the most part they're kids. I mean, they've gone through training, but they obviously aren't sales professionals in the sense of they don't have a career in it. But it's amazing the difference in terms of, regardless of what they sell or how much, their ability to get into a conversation with everyone as a prospect and qualify them goes so much further than a guy standing at the door with the encyclopedias or the vacuum in their hand, and it's
Yeah.
like, boom, and so it's amazing, those stories. So, and I've heard you talk about making your business the hero of your story. You mentioned it a little bit earlier too. Can you share with us, like, are there strategies, or how do we do that?
Yeah, so you always want to create a one-liner, which is like your elevator pitch. But that one-liner it consists of three parts. Number one, it's the problem that you solve for your customer. Number two, it's how you solve it. And number three, it's the outcome that they achieve when they have done business with you. So I'll give you an example of mine. Many companies don't know how to talk about their business in a way that people will stop and pay attention. We've created a proven marketing framework that helps business owners feel confident in marketing their business. You do that by engaging with Far Beyond Marketing for a 90-minute strategy session so that you can stop worrying about how to get customers and sleep better at night knowing your marketing is working on your behalf. I only mentioned my company name once in that, and that's
Yeah.
not what you're going to remember. But what you're
Right.
going to remember is, oh, she's going to help me talk about my business. So insert your company into that. Talk about how you help people and then help them to understand what they get out of doing business with you.
Yeah, I love how you wrap it together with giving them the visualization of the transformation or the end result, because
Yeah.
that resonates, right? You hit that emotional chord, and now the person is like, okay, yeah, I get what you do. You're going to help me market. You're going to help me do it. But wait a minute. I'm not going to be worried when I lay down at night that I'm not going to have
Right.
enough leads tomorrow. I'm going to actually be able to just sleep, and sleep for sleep's sake, instead of carrying my business on my back with me all day, every day, all night, every night. I mean, wow, like I'd pay for that relief, right? And
Yeah.
so that's really powerful to be able to encapsulate that in a short little soundbite like that. So that's really great advice. So one option for entrepreneurs, obviously in marketing, is some might say, listen, I'm not confident in this. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I should hire a marketing consultant, an agency. Are there specific, like, criteria, or is there a time when someone knows this is the right thing to do as my next step?
I think that every business is different and every life cycle is different for the business. So intuitively when you're ready to take off a hat, right? When you start your business initially, you're wearing all the hats. You're the call taker, you're the cook, you're doing all the things, right? So when you're ready to take it off, I think what you have to really think about is delegating your lesser strengths. Always hire someone who's more talented than you are in an area so that your business can lift. I love a hybrid model where you are partnering with a marketing expert who is also a partner in your business and engaging with you to be operationally in step with you. I think it's really a shame when people hire tacticians only because they don't have the big picture. They don't know what's going on in the business. So they're over here putting out pretty content on social media that has nothing to do with driving calls or revenue for your business. So there's automatically a disconnect. So I think when your capacity is tapped, when you are noticing that your marketing has stalled, when you are ready to have a conversation with someone who has a little bit more experience than you do, that would be the time that you start looking outside of your organization to bring in a marketing strategist to help you to advance to the next level.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think it's important to have that awareness, because I see a lot, people will get to a plateau, or they'll get to something that's an obstacle where they just can't seem to get. And for some reason, I don't know why this is. They don't question how they're doing things. I don't know if it's just because we get so busy. and adjusted and used to our day to day that we don't step back sometimes. It's super important, I think, to look
Yeah.
at your business instead of always being in your business so you can evaluate it
Yes.
from the outside. One of the advice I try to give people is, listen, if you were an investor and you had a blank check to write, would you invest in your own business? Because if you wouldn't, how could you expect anybody else to want to do that? Or how can you expect it to be successful? You got to put the systems in place. You got to have the things in there where you have a market and an audience and a connection and a brand where people say, wow, this is scalable. If they had the right,
Yes.
budget here and they wanted to pump, this is some. And so if you think with that mentality, it changes your relationship about the way you go about your day to day. Because instead of just being in the trenches doing the work, which you might have to do anyway, you're also looking at it from the outside to say, okay, how do I make this whole game raised up, as opposed to just churning out some new sales today to pay the bills. And so
Right. Yeah. I think that's a huge part of entrepreneurship is that we are so busy working in our business that we don't take the time that we need to work on our business. And you raised such an important point, even from a mental sanity perspective, right? One of my greatest mentors told me, you have to time schedule or time block time to think. She said, put it on your calendar. Make sure that you are scheduling at least an hour a week or a day a month, whatever you feel like you need to actually block off, to stop and think about your business. Because if you don't allow yourself that time, you're just going to spin your wheels like a hamster and ultimately fall off and be exhausted and, whatever. But you have to maintain that vision and that opportunity to continuously think about your goals and where you're moving forward.
Yeah, it's important to schedule that time, because what you don't realize is you think, oh, well, I'll do that when I get done with this. I'll do that. And it just keeps
Right.
getting pushed and pushed and pushed. So having that intention and saying, okay, I'm going to put this on the calendar. I don't want to be bothered during this 90 minutes or this 2 hours or whatever it is super important, because I know in times when I'm really busy, I get my best ideas when I'm in the shower, when I'm waking up in the middle of the
Yeah.
night with a dream, because I don't have time to think the rest of the time. So when my mind is quiet and working on other things, it's like, okay, wait, oh, I could do that. And so it is amazing, but you have to actually schedule that time. It's a much more effective way and predictable way to be able to do that. So we talked a little bit about your 4 C's framework. Can you actually break that down a little bit for us and share with us what it is and how it simplifies marketing for business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first C is clear copy, and you want that foundation, like we've talked about, to make sure that you know how you're going to talk about your company before you ever start investing in creative collateral or marketing. So that's foundational, and it's unfortunately a step that a lot of business owners overlook, right? I was talking with a guy yesterday, and he said, I hate the name of my company, but my attorney made me pick it because it was available. And he said, it doesn't even describe what I do. And I was like, well, that's a foundational problem. You need to go back to the drawing board on that, but you can't do that now. You got to get some revenue in the door. So take the time, take the pause, think about your story before you go to market. Number 2 is that consistent branding that we talked about, making sure that you are consistently putting out that brand, knowing where your customers are. There are great rolling billboard trucks. There are little leagues you can sponsor. There is no shortage of opportunities to brand your business. Where you brand your business is crucial for the kind of person that you want to market to. If you're trying to hit young people, then you probably want to go somewhere like TikTok. If you want to hit the older people, you want to take out an ad in the newspaper, right? Know your audience and put your branding in front of them. And then number 3 is that customer demographic, like we talked about also. What's the age? What's the geographic? What's the motivating factor? And for the love of Pete, look at your SKUs and look at your revenue generation and cross-reference what people are buying with the people that you are selling to, so that you are creating effective calls to action that are moving the needle forward for your business. Because it is shocking, Brett, how many times I work with entrepreneurs and we do a customer database analysis and we show them who their target audience is, and they go, I didn't think that's who was buying from me. I thought they were buying this. And I'm like, well, according to your QuickBooks, they're buying this, and this is who it is. So it's not always who you think it is. So understanding who you're serving is crucial. And then lastly, tap into that rinse and repeat cycle of channel management. Tap into the analytics that are available for you. If you're not an analytics driven person, then hire a marketing company that will do work for hire and will give you the information that you need to have well-informed, analytically driven decisions so that you feel like you have a good understanding and confidence of where to put your valuable marketing dollars.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it brings it all full circle, and really, it is super important. It's funny in terms of the number of times that if you ask a business owner to guess who their target customer is, and the
Mm-hmm.
reality of who that person is totally different. It's funny
Totally.
how often that happens. And look, it's not their fault. It's just the fact that they don't have, or they've never looked at or taken the time to get the data and really focus on that. Um,
Yep.
from a slightly different perspective, but same idea, the importance of the analytics. So when I was running ads in the back of those magazines, one of the things is the bigger manufacturers of PCs got smarter. They got better and better with their lead time. Our margins started to get cut. I said, look, this isn't going to be a long-term business. I'm going to have to shut it down after I did it for several years, I think 5 years, but I said, I got to move on to something else. So as I was trying to do it, I said, well, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of some of the promotions so I can ease this thing down. So the funny thing is, at the time, we weren't tracking which of the magazines each sale was coming from. So we were advertising in 3. And so I
Mm-hmm.
said, let's take the big one. This is expensive. Let's cut that. It'll cut a lot of the red ink off. And then we can sort of scale down and, right off in the sunset, do something else. So I said, but before I do it, let me spend a month. I should have been doing this the whole time, but I'm busy entrepreneur. I was working all the time.
Yeah.
Got a staff of
Yeah.
7, got to manage the team. So I implemented a thing where I said, every time we get a phone call, ask them where they saw our ad. I'll tell you the
Yes.
funniest thing. I would have cut the legs out under the business completely. 95% of our sales came from that one ad. The other 5% was from the
Wow.
other 2. And it was the lion's share of the budget as well, but it was
Wow.
disproportionately so. Like it was like 60% of the budget, but 95% of the sales. The other 2 were 40% of the budget and 5%. And I'm like, cut
Wow.
those 2. So I literally
Yeah.
would have kneecapped the business if I made something based on my own conjecture. I consider myself a
Yeah.
smart guy. I was dead wrong.
Yeah.
Dead
And
wrong?
isn't it funny how we make these assumptions, but small things, that very small action that you took, Brett, of just ask, how are you hearing about us? Right? I mean, my grandmother used to say to me, listen, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. Right. And I don't think it was a compliment. I think she was calling me pretty stupid, but um, the small things that we can do in our business can make waves. They really, really can. And for you, that saved you a lot of heartache just by
Yeah,
asking the question.
it was crazy, and I mean, it made me feel stupid but smart at the same time because I'm like, how could I have been so wrong with my ideas? I mean, it's my business. Shouldn't I know everything? But that's a misconception that you're going to know everything
Yes.
about it just because it's your business, and
Yes.
certainly not know everything about your customer or your marketing if you aren't that in tune with it, and we weren't at the time. So, um,
Yes.
so you're busy. I mean, you have a lot of stuff going on. I'm curious because one of our big focuses obviously is, dream business, dream life. How do you balance doing like business ownership, being a writer, being doing things in your community, also having personal time? How do you balance that, and how do you see it as, where's that measure of success for you with that?
Yeah. Well, for me, the measure of success is the freedom to spend my time the way that I want to, and to have the privilege of blocking out time when I need to prioritize family or whatever other things are important to me. I think balance is a myth, personally. I think we've always got plates spinning in the air, and so it boils down to choices. So I love time blocking. I love intentionally scheduling my day. I live by a calendar. I absolutely live by my calendar, and it is color coded. It makes me very happy that it's color coded. But I believe that systems run a business, and that by delegating to other people, I can basically double or triple my capacity. So I have a wonderful team in place. I don't try and do everything myself. And yeah, I just take it one step at a time, and I'm not afraid to pivot. If I need to pivot during the day and ask my assistant to push a meeting, then it took me a long time to realize I don't have to kill myself and make every single meeting the number one priority. I can actually structure my time in accordance to the goals that I need to achieve that quarter or that month, and make the adjustments as needed.
I like the distinction that you made about making choices, because we all have tons of opportunities. There's always other stuff that we could be doing. But when you're making intentional choices about things, that's where you really have the power to say, okay, I'm setting the schedule. And I also agree with your idea about it's kind of a myth, right? The balance thing. I think the key is to do the things, like you said, that you enjoy. I enjoy doing, my podcast. I enjoy doing the business stuff that I do. So that to me isn't work. It's not like it's time away from stuff I'd rather be doing. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it 24 hours a day, just like I wouldn't want to, play golf or whatever 24 hours a day. But you want to be able to have that where you're sort of checking all the boxes for what fulfills you, what makes you feel good, and also what gives you value and makes you feel alive, right? And so I think whatever that is for you, for me, I definitely probably work more than I should in some regards by objective standards. At the same time, I'm split among different things, so I'm not spending it all in one place. And I'm an active participant in my family. We do, so yeah, I think that is a really key distinction there, is to understand what it is that you want and then try to intentionally create that. And
Yeah.
it's okay to work. It's not a bad word.
No.
You just need to, make sure that you also have time for your other interests as well. So,
Yeah.
I appreciate that
Absolutely.
advice. All right. So
Yeah.
where can people find you, find your products, connect with you, services, stuff like that?
Absolutely. So you can find us at farbeyondmarketing.com. That's where you'll find my book. You'll find my online course. If you don't want to hire someone to do marketing, if you want to dive in and learn how to do it yourself, we've got a whole course for you. So go to farbeyondmarketing.com and check us out. I'm also on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on Facebook. Would love to connect.
Awesome. Appreciate that. All right. I have one last question I have to ask, because I always want to know what everyone's going to say. And that is, what's your number one tip for success as a business owner or an entrepreneur?
Oh, the number one tip for success. Don't ever give up. Tenacity is key. Make sure that if it's something that you really, really want to achieve, that you never stop looking for a way to do it. Failure is not an option, and neither is quitting. So just get up every day and do the next right thing.
I love that. I've talked to so many people, and I would say that the number one overarching thing or underpinning thing, depending on how you want to look at it, for success as an entrepreneur is exactly that. It's that, look, we all have failures or setbacks, whatever you want to call them, learning experiences.
Yeah.
But the people that make it are the people that don't give up. They just keep
Yeah.
continuing to look to find a way. And I think that's really, really great advice. So I appreciate that as well. All right. With that, it's just about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you so much again, Amber, for sharing all your insights and great tips with us. Visit farbeyondmarketingguidebook.com to see information about her international best-selling book, e-course, and marketing tools. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember, no matter what you want for your business and your life, don't compromise, optYOUmize.